Welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us another week. I had a couple of weeks off due to the Easter Seals Telethon being here in the studio. Always happy to give up the studio for that great cause, and always raises a lot of money for many children around the area who need it. But good to be back here on the show and have a great show lined up for you today. Dan Milleson, who's a candidate for the Ohio House of Representatives in the 95th District, will be my guest later on in the show. But first, I'll start with some of our usual features, and I'm going to start off with the quote of the day that's particularly appropriate for me, and that is this: health is not valued till sickness comes. Health is not valued till sickness comes. That's from Thomas Fuller, a 17th century English churchman and historian. It's particularly appropriate for me because I'm barely able to talk today because I've had a cold here for the last several days. Going from the warm weather to the cold weather and back and forth is taking its toll on me, but I'm going to make it through the show here today, and I've been looking forward to getting back here on the set. But there is a lot of truth to that quote. You know, we take our health for granted sometimes, particularly when we're in good health. We don't think about it being a blessing every single day. There are a lot of people out there dealing with things that are a lot more serious than the cold that I'm dealing with here today. Even this cold's kind of got me down and making me a little bit miserable, but when I start feeling that way, I start thinking of the people that are dealing with much more serious things, and perhaps even on a chronic basis that they have to deal with every single day. And when I think about that, I feel very blessed that I typically enjoy very good health. So I think we all need to be mindful of that, and also need to be mindful of the fact that we don't know what's going on in other people's lives. Sometimes they may have an illness going on that we can't even see. They may have a family member who's dealing with something, and so if they're maybe having a rough day and we don't know why, give people the benefit of the doubt, because when you're not feeling the greatest, sometimes your mood's not the greatest either. Maybe you're a little bit quicker to snap at somebody, a little bit slower to do something you would normally do for somebody, so be mindful of that and other people's feelings. A couple other comments here about the local area. Early voting's underway for the 2018 primary election, and it's really important that you exercise what I would say is a privilege to vote. A lot of countries don't enjoy that privilege around the world. We're a democracy. We fought to be a democracy back in the 18th century, and we've enjoyed living in a democracy, and part of that is the right to vote. One of the other things I think is very important is serving on a jury when you're called for jury duty. It's really two times that we're really called upon to do our civic duties, to vote and serve on juries. And that's something that I experience with my work. But voting is very, very important. You may say, well, why do I want to vote? What difference does one vote make? Well, of course, the old adage goes, if everybody said that, then it wouldn't matter. There would be nobody out there voting. But the bigger thing is because people are fighting, our military is still out there fighting to preserve our democracy, to keep our right to vote, and to live in a country where we have the freedoms that we enjoy. And when you start not exercising those privileges that those soldiers and others have fought to preserve, then I think you're really doing a disservice to those people in the military and everyone else who's fought to establish and preserve our democracy. So I think it's really important that people do that and exercise that right to vote. Even in races that are uncontested at times, especially like they are sometimes in the primary, important still to go out, cast your vote, say, yes, I want this person, or exercise your right not to vote for that person if you don't think there's anybody worthy of your vote. But at least go there and fill out the ballot and choose the ones that you think are. And there's some important issues that are sometimes on the ballot as well. For example, here in Ohio County, this particular election, there's a bond levy up, in terms of money that will be utilized to better our school system and that will benefit our children. And so an important thing there as well, but that has to be approved in order for that to go through and for that money to be utilized for those purposes. So a lot of important things. And then, of course, in November, we'll have our general election where much of our offices, many of our offices will be decided upon who will hold those for the next either 2 or 4 years, depending upon the particular office, sometimes even 6 when you're looking at some seats. So very important to do that. I was reading in the local paper and also online recently about a game that some kids are playing called Assassins. Many of you may have heard about this, but it's a game where kids pair up in teams of 2, and they're assigned to go out with fake guns. I think they were water-type guns, and try to shoot somebody on another team to eliminate that team from the contest. And there's something like over 100 kids participating in this, and I guess the last team standing wins over $1,000 or something like that from the pot that everybody contributes a little bit of money to at the beginning of the game. And I just want to make the comment that the chief of police came out and said that he's really concerned about this game. The chief of police here in Wheeling, Chief Schwartzweger, and I share his sentiments. All it's going to take is one time for a kid to be lurking around someone's property with a fake gun and somebody thinks it's real, they think it's a burglar, all of a sudden that kid gets shot when he's playing this game with other high school kids. I think it's a really bad idea. These kids are doing it in businesses, they're doing it in public areas. We already have experienced during this school year some very, very tragic shootings around the country. It's not the time to be playing games where fake guns are involved. I think it's disrespectful to those that have been affected by these tragic shootings around the country, but more importantly, it's just not safe. Something bad is going to happen. And I know that people can't control their kids. You can talk to your kids, you can do all you can, and sometimes they just don't listen. Sometimes they're 18, they consider themselves to be adults now. I know I made some poor decisions when I was 18. I still make poor decisions today. I'm in my 40s. But what we can do is we can talk and try to educate and get our kids to listen and try to discourage them from playing this game. I think it's a really bad idea. I think whether it may be fun or not, there are other ways to have fun. And I'm all for having fun. I like to have a good time. But I don't think this is the right way at this time or this place to do it. And I think people should really try to do everything they can to discourage kids from participating in this game, because I would really hate to see something tragic happen to one of these kids just because they were trying to have a good time. So please be mindful of that. And if you can do something to discourage the kids from doing that, then by all means, please do it. We need to take a break. When I come back, I'll have my guest with me, Dan Milleson. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Bordas and Bordas, fighting for justice.
Recommended by the highest authorities. Danoon Lumber.
It's like a bad one's coming. Yeah. Right?
Bordas and Bordas, fighting for justice.
Welcome back to the show. This is my favorite time each week when I have a guest with me. And this week my guest is Dan Milleson, who is running for the Ohio House of Representatives in the 95th District. And Dan, it's great to have you here on the show.
It's good to be here, Jamie. Thanks for having me, especially given the way you feel.
Yeah, I'm not my best day in terms of my voice and stuff. So maybe you can carry me here a little bit, Dan.
I'll try to, yes, sir.
I've heard you speak, and you're a great speaker, so I'll be happy to have you do that. But you grew up here in the Ohio Valley, and people might not even know where the 95th District is. I mean,
yeah.
it's a pretty big district in Ohio that encompasses your home county of Harrison County, but also a whole lot else.
Yeah, it actually covers Carroll County, Harrison County, the western half of Belmont County, Noble County, and the top part of Washington County, including the 3rd Ward of Marietta. It is the biggest of all 99 House districts. So.
Yeah, so you're seeking to represent a big geographic area.
Sure.
The districts are based upon the population, but it's kind of spread out. It
yeah,
makes it tough to campaign. I'm
sure it does. Yeah, we're pretty sparsely populated out here, so a lot of miles on my truck and a lot of effort to get from Matamoros to Minerva. So yeah.
I mentioned you grew up in Harrison County, went to Harrison County schools, and you were instrumental, of course, recently. I talked to you a little bit earlier in the show about voting and how there's a levy here in Ohio County and West Virginia on the ballot this time. But you were instrumental in getting the levy over there in Harrison County passed.
Yeah, I was involved. Ultimately, we have to credit the voters, but I and my friends started a political action committee in 2015 to advocate for the levy's passage. It was an experience. We actually canvassed all over the county. It's 409 square miles. That's the size of our school district. So we hit a bunch of different towns and fundraised, and actually ended up buying a commercial and tried to advocate for the passage of a levy that we thought was worth the taxpayer dollars. So,
people may not understand that levies don't always pass. In fact, frequently they haven't, especially in eastern Ohio over the years. And so that was a pretty significant achievement to get that passed. And What made you even get involved in that type of process? I mean, you really hadn't been involved in the political process in the past,
Sure.
and how did that kind of affect your ability, your thoughts on now running for the Ohio House?
Well, when I was in school, elementary school, 3 schools out in Harrison County consolidated to become one. And so there was Lakeland, there was Jewett-Scio, and there was Caddis. And in 1999, when we consolidated, there were groups started then actually to advocate against the consolidation, and a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of tradition that had to be let go to form Harrison Central. So my experience at the school was really positive. I was involved in athletics and had a really great experience as a student at Harrison Central. Thought that this was my opportunity in 2015 to give back. And so we had failed 2 levies prior to that to build new schools. On this 3rd attempt, though, we actually passed at 53-47. And so last summer we got to enjoy a $53 million school building. It's groundbreaking, which was an incredible experience, and really it's how I got the bug for politics and changing the status quo. So.
You mentioned about being involved in athletics and giving back, and one of the ways that you've done that, I understand, is through coaching, which I've coached over the years. My wife coaches, and you've been active in coaching basketball, and what do you do in that regard, and why do you do that?
So I just love being around the kids. I coach a 5th grade travel team for Harrison Central, and we just have a ball. I've been doing it the last 4 years. I've loved basketball, baseball all my life. Love football too, but played basketball and baseball. And really, I just see it as an opportunity to forget about the work week. Those kids, they progress so quickly too at that age. In 5th grade, as you know, I believe your daughter's team beat our boys' team earlier this year in a tournament. So it's enjoyable to watch the progress that they make, and it happens very quickly. So we love doing it.
You just made my daughter happy. She'll like that she said that. One of the things with that I always find with coaching is that it does force you out of what you're doing in your daily life, like you said, and you're around those kids, and you do kind of forget about work, and you've got a lot of hats going. You're running for office right now. You coach, but you also have a very busy professional life. You own a nationwide insurance agency, you have multiple locations,
yes, sir.
And you've been at that for a little while, and the family's been at that for a while.
Yeah, family's been involved with Nationwide since 1946, before it was even Nationwide, back when it was Farm Bureau. My great-grandfather Brady started the agency. My grandfather Kinsey continued it. My father Rich in 1990 took it over. And in 2013, I did the same. When I got there was 4 of us. As of today, there's 14 of us. So we've grown pretty exponentially here over the past few years, and that's been a blessing, and it's also been a challenge. So a lot of the job is management now, and I've got a great staff and some great employees there that make it possible for me to go chase my dreams, and this is an example of, my candidacy is an example of that. So.
Where are the locations for your agency?
So our home location has been in Freeport for many, many years, Freeport, Ohio. That's western Harrison County, and then we're down in Bridgeport, got down there in 2015, and we're also located in Wintersville, now moving down to Steubenville at the Franciscan Square location there across from the college. So that'll be open May 1st.
That'd be a great spot for you.
Yes, sir.
We need to take a break. When we come back, I'll continue talking to Dan Milleson. We'll talk all about his campaign and why he's running for the Ohio House and what he hopes to accomplish. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
At Ultra Big Bank, we need to be assured you can make your payments. Yes. Well, buy them out. Acquire. Acquire! As I was saying, I'm not sure I see the value in your small account.
That's when we went to Belmont Savings. They took the time to understand our needs.
And they didn't make us feel small. Where the big banks are only interested in growing, Belmont Savings' interest was in us.
Belmont Savings Bank, focused on your future.
So, how was your first day?
Long. So, Josh asked me about you.
Daddy's home. Go get him.
For your home, for your life, for more than 50 years. The Hardwood Specialists, DeNoon Lumber.
Welcome back to the show. I've been speaking with my guest this week, Dan Milleson, who's a candidate for the Ohio House of Representatives in the 95th District. And Dan, we've talked a little bit about your background, but let's get right to this campaign for the House of Representatives. I mean, what kind of sparked your interest in running for this position, and what do you hope to accomplish?
Well, it's an open seat. For the last 8 years, Andy Thompson's been in this seat, and I knew that in 2018 this race was going to be an open one. And that, coupled with the feeling that I have there's an urgency for right now, those two things, along with my experience in the levy, that all led to my deciding to do this. The race itself, I announced on November 20th and decided to start right then, going up and down the district and meeting people. And ultimately, I feel like if there was a year for a Democrat in Eastern Ohio who's concerned about the economic fortunes of his people first, to run, this was the year to run. So,
you mentioned Andy Thompson. You knew the seat would be open.
Yeah.
I mean, people may not realize in Ohio, the House of Representatives has term limits, unlike in some states.
Yeah. So 8 years, that's the max. 4 2-year terms, and that's the end of the term for representatives. Yes, sir.
What are some of the goals that you have? You get elected to the Ohio House. You go to the State House. What would you hope to accomplish there?
Well, I feel like we need to do something for people who are living below the poverty line, who are working 40 hours a week. In my opinion, if you're working hard at your job, your wage should at least get you above poverty. And so living wage, standing up for organized labor, everything from the opioid crisis down through rural broadband internet, those are some issues that matter to me. And I think the opioid crisis is particularly pointed right now. Medicaid expansion happened in 2014 in Ohio, which actually got health care for 700,000 more Ohioans, 220,000 of which are receiving care for mental health and addiction issues. So when Medicaid expansion came onto the scene, and our governor, you have to give him credit, decided to allow that, Ohio took a step towards caring or doing something for those addicted to opioids. And so anybody who is against Medicaid expansion, and I know one governor's candidate on the Republican side has come out against Medicaid expansion, if you're against Medicaid expansion, you're not serious about the opioid crisis.
One of the things that I found to be very interesting with respect to your campaign, when you look at the team around you, you've got some older folks, some middle-aged folks, you've got a lot of young folks that are really energized and working on your team and on your behalf.
Right.
And it's good to see younger folks, you're relatively young to be running.
Yeah.
It's good to see people like you involved in the process, good to see people that are out supporting your campaign that are young and saying, hey, we want to be involved.
Yeah, admittedly, I'm not great at talking about myself, but I do feel like I have the ability to build an organization, and that's what we've started to do with people who are in their 20s and people who are in their 60s. We've got an unpaid communications director, an unpaid field director, volunteers that are going to take care of particular constituency groups like labor, like education, like the opioid crisis. We're really trying to build a network of people who are working on issues they actually care about and feel like they can make a difference with. And so, more than anything else, I'm trying to empower people to get involved in the political process, and trying to let young people know that it's never too early to start to get engaged into politics. And ultimately, if you're not involved in politics, you are destined to be ruled by those who are. So I think it's important that we get involved.
Well, I think people want to see new folks involved. They're frustrated with those that have a lot of attention in the Ohio State House, Speaker resigning, issues like that. I mean, I think people want to see change.
Yeah, so right now in the State House, I think that there's been a culture of some would say corruption. The Speaker did resign. Speaker Rosenberger resigned just a couple weeks ago amid questions that were being asked by the FBI regarding payday lenders and a trip that they paid for overseas. So clearly there's some issues there. The biggest scandal of all, in my opinion, is ECOT. And ECOT stands for the Electronic Classroom of Tomorrow. It was Ohio's then largest online charter school that overbilled the state by $60 million. So they inflated their attendance numbers to the state, and the state was then funding the money based on attendance figures that weren't correct. And now Ohio is trying to claw back $60 million and that's taxpayer money. And ECOT, if you look at their record of who they donated money to, I think usually when you follow the money, you can find out who was allowing this to happen. And so I would encourage everybody to look up ECOT and find out more about that story.
If there's one thing you could say to people that are going to be going to the ballots, that have an opportunity to vote for you in May and in November, what's the one reason that you think people should cast their ballot for you?
I'm going to work my tail off, and I love where I'm from. There's policy positions that people differ on, and I understand that. But if you want somebody who's going to be working at this job 7 days a week and who's going to frankly obsess over it and try to be the best possible candidate, the best possible legislator that he can be, I'm that person. And ultimately that, coupled with my love for the Ohio Valley and for Southeast Ohio and my general desire to do good, are all reasons why I think that I'm the person for the job.
Well, Dan, good luck to you. I normally shake your hand with having this cold. I don't want to do that. I don't want to give it to you, but I really appreciate you being here on the show and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much. We can fist bump, though, can't we?
That sounds good.
Thank you.
People in nursing homes are some of the most vulnerable members of our society. They're there because they can't take care of themselves. Those facilities have a duty to take care of our loved ones, and when they don't, it's important they're held accountable. We've not only collected record results against negligent nursing homes, but more importantly, we've helped so many families get the answers and closure they so badly needed.
Bordas and Bordas, fighting for justice.
We're Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration, and we're gonna save you. We've got it down to a science, an absolute state of art. We do it all, restoration, cleaning, and reconstruction. When disaster strikes, just pick up the phone. We're Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration, and we're gonna save you.
Welcome back to the show. It's time to talk sports, and let's start in Pittsburgh with the Pirates. And after a hot start, the Pirates have struggled a little bit more as of late, getting swept by the Phillies, a 4-game series. And, people don't need, don't panic yet. It's a long season. I said that people would be wrong about the Pirates, that they'd finished in the top 2 in the division. I'm going to stick with that. It's a long season, and I like what I've seen from Trevor Williams, from Jamison Tyon, the starting pitching there that's done well. They've both looked sharp. Corey Dickerson in the outfield has performed well at the plate. If guys like Gregory Polanco can come around, who's showed some power with a handful of home runs and leading the team in RBIs, but his batting around 200. If he can lift his average, get Jay back healthy, who has a broken bone in his hand, I think this team has potential. I think there's a lot of youth there. There's speed. There's some ability to do things. Some boneheaded mistakes at times, and the relief pitching. They've got to find that relief pitching that can get the job done. Keep searching for guys until you find those guys that are going to be trustworthy, that you can hand the ball to from the starters. But if they can, do that, and that's easier said than done. I still think that the Pirates will surprise people this year and finish in the top 2 in the division. But we'll keep our eye on them. It's early. It's still April. We'll see what happens in the time to come. But I think April went overall better than people thought that it was going to go. But after the hot start, again, it's kind of come back to earth here a little bit. The NBA playoffs are underway, and before the season started, I said it would be the Warriors over the Cavs in the finals again this year. I'm going to stick with it. I think the Warriors are still the best team. They're not the 1 seed in the West. Houston's got the 1 seed. The Golden State Warriors are the 2 seed, but won the initial series over the San Antonio Spurs 4-1. And of course, condolences go out to Coach Greg Popovich, who lost his wife in the middle of the series. Very significant loss for him, his family, and really the San Antonio community. But they lost 4-1, and the Warriors play without Steph Curry, hoping to get Steph back sometime during the second round series. But I still think the Warriors are the team to beat. They've looked awfully good even without Steph Curry, who's missed 35 games or so this season due to various ankle injuries, knee injuries. The most recent, a knee injury coming when his own player, JaVale McGee, landed kind of into his knee. But I think they will come out of the West. I think they'll have an unbelievable series ultimately with the Houston Rockets in the Western Conference Finals. I think that'll be one that'll be really fun to watch. But I think in the East, Philly's become a very trendy pick. You know, they won their opening series 4-1 over the Miami Heat. Is Dwayne Wade going to be done? You know, if we've seen his last NBA game, who knows? But Philly's become a very trendy pick. You still got Boston out there, Toronto, who have had very good seasons, but I still like Cleveland to come out of the East. LeBron James, even when the rest of his team isn't playing well, can win 2 playoff game series on his own. I think you get 2 just even when everybody else is playing bad. Then you got to scrape your way to 2 others when everybody's playing well. So I think they come out of the East. I don't think that they'll have enough talent to beat the Warriors in the finals. So I still like the Warriors over the Cavs in the finals. But it's going to be a tough path for Cleveland to get there, coming from the 4 spot, and with those other teams playing very well, including Philly and Boston. So we'll keep an eye on that. The NHL playoffs also underway. Of course, the Penguins are looking to three-peat, something that no team has done since the 1980s, and they're into the second round now where they're facing the Washington Capitals. Of course, the Pens have kind of had the Capitals' number the last several years in the playoffs. Alex Ovechkin, the Capitals star, yet to win a Stanley Cup, and the question remains, will he, during the course of his career, can he get over the hump? Can they get past the Penguins? I don't think they'll do it this year. I picked the Penguins to three-peat at the beginning of the year. I think they're still going to do that. I think this series with the Caps will go 7 games, but I think the Pens will get it done in 7 games and will once again knock the Capitals out of the playoffs. I think that the Penguins are going to pull off the three-peat. I'm going to stick with them. It's a challenge. I mean, there's a reason that no team has done it in over 3 decades. It's not easy to do. But when you look at having guys like Crosby, having Malkin, having Letang healthy this year, Murray having some experience in goal, and having won Stanley Cups. You know, I think when you look at all those things, and then they've got a coach who's experienced, I think that there's really the opportunity there to do something that no team has done in decades, and to be one of the teams that's really remembered over the course of the years as being a very special one. So I still do like the Pens there. Another big thing this week, of course, in professional sports is the NFL draft. Everybody keeping their eye out to see what the Steelers do here in the draft this week. Defensive side of the ball needs some help. I mean, you give up 45 points in a playoff loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You lose 45-42. When you score 42, it's supposed to be enough. Of course, Todd Haley, offensive coordinator, out, and Ben Roethlisberger, and he never quite saw eye to eye. So new offensive coordinator, but the defensive side of the ball is where you look to see the Steelers make a splash. Will they draft Ben's successor in this draft? People have big questions about that. A lot of talk about, will it be Lamar Jackson? I don't think it'll be Lamar Jackson, but I do think the Steelers may take a shot at a quarterback if the one that they want's there at the right spot. We'll talk all about the NFL draft on next week's show. We'll give a recap and talk about what the Steelers did with the draft. That's all the time we have for this week. Until then, thanks for joining in, and we'll see you again next week on The Jamie Bordas Show.